Hello and welcome back to Happy Hour. I'm your host, DJ Kyle, and sitting here next to me, one of my most favorite people. This man knows history and he can just bring it to life. It is Professor Jim Pasley here. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm super excited about having you on the show because last time we were talking about the history of Missouri, and now we're going to kind of get into the people of Missouri.
And it is fascinating. I mean, some of the people, you sit there and think to yourself, they're from Missouri?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can do several shows in a row talking about all these interesting people that actually came from Missouri, you know. And we've got one today, Walt Disney.
Walt Disney from Missouri, huh?
Yes, and it's most people don't realize that. It's interesting in that Walt was actually born in Chicago, okay, all the way back in 1901, all right? But he was there just until he was about 4 years old. And his parents said, you know, Chicago isn't the place to be to raise a family and all. And so they packed up and they moved to Missouri.
Oh, I thought you were going to say to Beverly.
Yeah, well, it's
I've
almost
heard
a story like that, you know.
So they moved to Missouri.
And they moved to Missouri, and of all places, they went to a little farm outside of Marceline, Missouri, okay? And, you know, you sit there and think, what an adjustment for that family to go from Chicago to Marceline, Missouri, because, you know, bear in mind, we're talking, this would have been 1904, 1905.
Yeah.
You know, Marceline, Missouri was... you know, look like the set for Gunsmoke, you know, those kind of things.
Yeah, from the city to there. Now, where is Marceline?
Marceline is up north, the northeastern part, northeast central part of the state. And what's interesting is that the city of Marceline, this little town, this little rural town, it became the model for Main Street for Disneyland.
Yeah.
When you go to Disneyland and they have their little Main Street, it was based off of his childhood memories of being raised in this little small rural town.
Wow, that's really neat. And
cool.
I've heard bits and pieces of Walt Disney and some of the history. So I'm really excited about diving even more into this.
So, you know, in Marceline, he attended the Park Elementary School, and like I say, this is where he was born and raised, you know. So, I mean, it's here that, you know, he's in a rural setting, so he started drawing pictures of animals. He was into doing artwork and all. And this is where his imagination kind of sprang forth, if you will. Now, after 4 years, they found out, you know, it's hard to make a living on farmland out in the middle of nowhere. And Walt's father fell ill. And in 1911, the family moved to Kansas City. So here again, Walt Disney.
Back into a city.
Into a city, but he's in Missouri now, in Kansas City. And here, Walt and his brother Roy, they helped their father deliver newspapers. That's what they were doing for a living. Now, he's only 9 years old at the time, but he's bundling up the newspapers and throwing them out in the yards.
Learn that work ethic.
Yes, exactly.
You kind of see the life build from, like you said, like drawing the pictures, and now it's getting the work ethic.
So his experience, you know, he's getting up at 3:30 in the morning, and 7 days a week, he and his brother are out, you know, taking and throwing the newspapers into everybody's yards, okay? Now, his work responsibilities didn't keep him from drawing. He still loved to draw, and that's what he did with all of his free time. And he eventually got into the Kansas City Art Institute. Walt Disney, folks. Now, basically, he would go there for Saturday mornings for classes, and, you know, he even got involved in some vaudeville skits and that sort of thing. So he's got that kind of, you know, ability to deal with the public, you know, and
put himself out there.
He's an entertainer, in addition to his skills as an artist, okay? Now, he graduated from the Benton School, and soon the family moved back to Chicago. Now, you would think, okay, well, that's the end of the story. But what happened is in 1917, the war breaks out, World War I, okay? And sure enough, he lied about his age and entered the military. Walt Disney, folks. And he joined the military, and he was in the war, in World War I. He headed for France, and his tour of duty lasted for about 9 months, and he drove supply trucks and ambulances.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting
Yeah.
thing. Most people would lie to not be able to go like
Right.
or
Yeah. Now, after the war, he came back and he said, I don't want to go to Chicago. He said, I want to go back to Missouri. And that's what he did. He got a job in Kansas City with a company called the Kansas City Slide Company. Now, back then, most of the things that you utilized as far as pictures and stuff are the old slides. Some of you old timers out there, you remember the slides, right? Yeah, and so the company was making slides for commercial companies, okay? And he learned from that how to do animation. And he started learning how to turn around. Remember when you were kids, you could take a little tablet of paper and you could put a dot on it and you could make it go, and by flipping through it, it would move,
Yeah.
you know? Well, that's basically what he was learning how to do, only doing it with slides. So that's where he got his background in doing animation, all right? And so you can see throughout his whole career, he's learning all these different skills. Well, sure enough, eventually, he took that skill and he created his first popular film, and it was Alice's Wonderland, and it was created in Kansas City, and it featured a girl by the name of Virginia Davis. And this is where he entered the cartoon world. And he went on to make a whole series of these films, and I encourage folks to look these up. They're referred to as Alice's Comedies. That's where he started. And he operated the new company for a year and a half and had all kinds of good ideas, but he wasn't a very good businessman. He's an artist and an entertainer. Eventually, his staff left because they weren't, making enough money, and Disney declared bankruptcy. He's flat broke. He's lost everything, and that's in 1923, all right? And look where he is today.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, the building where Disney first created his first films and operated his first staff is still standing there in Kansas City, okay? Now, the animators who got their start in Kansas City eventually followed Disney to California. And we know what happened then. When he got there, here he dives in and he starts creating he had a studio and started creating all of these different films, okay? He had borrowed $500 from his uncle. That's where he got his start. $500. That's how it started. In 27, Disney created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Now, the interesting thing is, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was kind of a big hit, but it just wasn't the right character. He just didn't see it that way. And so he hooked up with a distributor to distribute his Lucky Rabbit films, and eventually he and another one of his animators got together and they started working on a new character. And I bet you can't guess who that was.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse.
Exactly,
Here it
Mickey
is.
Mouse, okay? And so they created this new character, Mickey Mouse, and sure enough, they came out with their first animated film, big animated film. It was Steamboat Willie in 1928. Think about that.
Wow.
Almost 100 years ago, okay? And in 1925, he had already changed the name of the company from Disney Brothers Studios, changed it to Walt Disney Studio, as we know it now, okay? Now, the Great Depression, he's still making money. People are loving this stuff, okay? In 1932, he won his first Academy Award, and it was called Flowers and Trees, the film that he did. But in 37, Snow White, and gosh, who hasn't seen that? Amazing, right? For the first full-length animated feature film was Snow White. Also in 32, he created this whole Disney style of animation, and this is really what set the entire industry forward with animation and these full-length cartoon movies, okay? Now in 41, we've got the war hits again. And sure enough, what happened is the Army came in and took over his studio because they were producing all kinds of films for the military, training films. And some of you, again, some of you old timers out there like me, you can remember a film called Duck and Cover. It had a turtle, and the turtle's walking down the street and had a music with it, Duck and Cover, and was basically telling citizens what to do if we were ever attacked. You would duck and you'd cover, well, the turtle would crawl back into its shell. But this was a Disney film.
It's a Disney
and
film.
It was distributed everywhere. So even during the war years, he was making good money.
But not
with
as
the films.
popular as Snow White.
No, not quite.
Yeah.
But if you can, get on YouTube and pull up Duck and Cover. You'll get a kick out of it, right? And again, it's an animated cartoon to educate the public. Now, he recovered from the turmoil of the 40s, and from there, the rest was history. Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty. Just unbelievable. And then he even got into regular filmmaking, things like Swiss Family Robinson. Remember that film?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
one of his. And The Parent Trap.
Yeah.
That was another one. So Disney took advantage of television when it came on the scene. And some of you can remember Sunday nights sitting there watching Walt Disney World, and it had all the different films and cartoons. Just absolutely amazing. He came out with a regular series called Davy Crockett. Some of you might remember that as well. So again, he started, in this whole field, and then he gets this brilliant idea, I'm going to build a theme park. And this is where Disneyland came from,
Yeah.
1955. And like I say, the neat thing about it is Main Street, Marceline, Missouri.
And that's what started right here in Missouri.
Started right here in Missouri. So again, it's just absolutely amazing what he was able to do. And somebody interviewed him one time, and he said, more things of importance happened to me in Marceline, Missouri than have happened ever since. Wow. And he just saw that as that's what set him off on his career.
Yep, that was his start of his career.
Again, another wonderful Missourian who contributed so much to us.
Marceline, Missouri, a $500 loan and a mouse. You too can own a couple theme parks all around the world.
There you go. It's great, isn't it?
Professor Pasley, thank you so much for coming in today. This is so great, and I'm excited about who we're going to learn about next time. Famous Missourians.
I think we'll talk sports the next time with a fellow by the name of Yogi Berra.
Ooh, sounds good. So make sure you join us next time when we have Professor Pasley on. And until then, we have more Happy Hour coming up right after this.